Now we really need to dive into what is going to make a really good, crisp, nice binding channel. So we need to go all the way around and double check everything we can. I'm going to trim off a small piece of binding, and I'm going to grab a piece of purfling, and we're going to go around and carefully take a look around the entire channel. We might as well start on the back since we're on the back. I'm going to double check the depth, the height of these channels, get my purfling and my binding in. That looks good. I'm going to go all the way around and check. You can even get down to eye level with this, kneel down, take a look down it, and see if you see anything funky. Is there anything that we need to take care of? Is there anything along here that needs to change? Does it look right? Do we see any kind of undulations or waves? Anything that we need to attend to? It seems like we're in pretty good shape. That height is good. Looking on the other side. The other thing you can watch for when you put this kind of final test piece in is to see if your binding is doing any of this. If it does, the way to attack that is with a file. Again, with that smooth side down on here so that we don't dig this any deeper. But the end wedge is especially prone to that kind of tilt. Yeah, there actually is. So when I switched bits, something happened here and it got a little bit of a wave in it that I'm going to fix with this. I think that took care of it. Almost. Remember, you want to keep that nice smooth radius in it because this is not flat. Yeah, I like the look of that from the top. It looks good from this direction. I'm going to continue checking. So far, my binding channels are nice and vertical. All right, the back I'll get to, and I'll actually spin this around to take care of it. But let's take a look at this end wedge and this purfling and how we attack that. So you can see it's stepped, and what I want to do is come along and I want to finish out this rosewood channel right to the purfling. Do the same on this side. So I come in just a little bit. I keep creeping in this way towards it. So I'll bring it in a little bit more. And a little bit more. And I've got it. Now, how do we get this purfling in here? How do we get this miter in here? Well, the easiest way is with using the back side of your chisel as a mirror. So that's the angle I have to get. And hopefully you can see there, you can see that purfling line changing. So what I'm looking for is to line up that purfling right about where it's going to go. So about right there. Don't want to tilt it up, don't want to tilt it down. I want to really try and get it right on that line. And once I have it, just push in, cross your fingers, and that should do it. Just repeat on the other one. Okay, that looks about right. Great. So just using the back of your chisel as the mirror to try and get that angle correct. And we'll duplicate that with the other purfling strips as they come in. That should get our angle correct. All right, here's that purfling. And again, using the mirror as my angle finder, and I know that that is just slightly less than perpendicular, so that's about where I want it, because that end wedge is angled. And once that gets pushed on top, I'm happy with that. I think that's going to line up just fine. So that's how to miter in your purfling. Okay, I've got the guitar carrier unbolted from the top. So I do want to take a look at this spot here. I am looking through here to see if everything is at the right angle. It looks really good to me. I don't have anything towing in or towing out, which is really easy to do, especially on the back where the angles are very different than the top and things aren't quite level, to give you the same perpendicular that we're going to get on the sides, especially on the blocks versus the top. So it gets a little funky. Mine aren't very funky, so there's nothing to really correct. The depth is good all the way around. I don't feel or see anything that is out of the ordinary. Visually, these look really good, and I really don't have any touch-ups that I need to take care of. It is really easy to make a good or even a great guitar look like a poorly put together guitar if you don't take care of these binding channels. The binding channels really do stick out. You know, the colors are usually a contrast to the body and the top, and if you have big gaps in here, you're going to notice those. That's going to be very evident. The best way to avoid those and to get a good binding job is to really take care that these channels are cut correctly and that they're cut even, that you don't have any funky undulations, that you do a good job to prep your sides beforehand. Really, everything is preparation. In building a guitar, in finishing a guitar, in woodworking in general, preparation really is everything. And the better job you can do preparing your guitar to be bound, the better off you're going to be and the happier you're going to be with the results. Because if you do a poor job binding this guitar, it's going to haunt you forever. It probably won't happen again, but it definitely will haunt you. Take a look at the top. I've got a few fuzzies here I need to take care of. And once again, when you are cleaning this off, take a lot of care not to round things over, if at all possible, to avoid that, because these nice crisp lines are really going to fit the bindings much better than rounding it over. Rounding it over, you're going to have some gaps, and again, those gaps are going to haunt you. So clean out your fuzzies. Always clean your fuzzies. Oh yeah, I found a mistake I wanted to point out to you before I got covered up. So this is, you can kind of see what happened right in here. I've got a pretty large gap right here, and that binding machine gave me a little burp. It goosed the top a little bit right there because I had this open and the bearing went down inside of this. I'm not concerned about this at all because the fretboard is going to cover this, but let me put a straight edge on that and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap there. That dent happened because this was open, the bearing went down inside it, and caused a problem. Now, if that was on the back, I would be a little upset because that's going to be pretty visually evident, but it's not. It's here where it's going to get covered up. So that's what can happen if you don't pay attention to this gap between the sides where they come together on the heel block. A couple last things to do to these are to get the purflings cut and get the bindings cut. So the purflings, I'm going to kind of rough fit. Now the length of the purfling is enough to go around the entire guitar, but since we've cut them and we're mitering in down on the end graft, that's why I cut this one. Then I'll cut one similarly on the other side. Now that I've got it cut in half, I'm going to fit it again. Just to double check. And it's actually a little bit long. And the fit back here can be off by quite a bit because we've got so much room to play with underneath the neck and fretboard. I'm not worried about this on the top. On the back, we'll want to be pretty careful about that because the neck will not go all the way down, so there'll be a tiny bit of joint exposed. That one's set. Okay, now for the bindings. I'm using ebony bindings, but if you were using something a little more decorative like flamed mahogany, flame maple, anything with a pattern in it, now would be the time to put these on the guitar, figure out if you've got the most kind of exotic or showy pieces. You're probably going to want those on the top. And then you would lay those out and mark them out very well so you didn't forget where those are going. But with my ebony bindings, they're such a consistent color that I really don't need to worry about what goes where, and I'm not concerned about a particular pattern on these things showing up. I want to find the spot that it really is going to be comfortable sitting in, and I think that's about it right there. And I give myself a mark with a white pencil. I'm marking out the centers of the end wedge again, so I have a good mark to snip the ends of these off on.
Line the binding up on the mark you made for the center of the waist, then bring the binding around to the end wedge and mark where it lines up on the center of the end wedge. Then we'll repeat it for the other side. Line up the waist, bring it around to the end, and mark for the center of the end wedge.
Now that I've got these marked, I am going to snip it pretty close to that line, but not exactly on it. I'm going to do that to both of them. And when you nip the ends of these with a pliers or a snip or anything, it's going to cause some compression here on these grains, and it's not going to give you a very clean joint. So it's always a good idea to clean this up. Now you can clean this up with a chisel. You can go clean it up on a disc sander. I don't want to take too big of a chunk, like, you know, from here or something. Just kind of scraping the edge with the chisel, trying to get a good slice on it and get that as close to 90 degrees as possible. Let's see. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not afraid of that. Excellent. All right, looks good. I'm going to bring this around to the back side and give myself a mark back here, but it like I said before, it does not need to be as precise as the one up on the tail block. Okay, those bindings are set. Now, the last piece is the long purfling that is going to sit in this upper channel. That is going to be one piece. I'm going to find my middle without putting too much of a bend in it. Give myself a white pencil mark on it, and that will start down here. Snip the end off that. Do the same thing going the other way. And that should do it. Now we're just about ready to install these. Now that I've got it sitting on my carpet, got it out of the carriage, I want to take one last look around everything and make sure that everything still looks good. No surprises. And I think we are there. Now we can move on to actually installing the bindings. So I'm going to cut the video there, get myself set up, and then we'll start the next one with actually installing. So catch you in the next video.